I'm going to kind of just go through each of these types of deals and tell you the different things that can be negotiated in them and maybe some red flags to look out for. So let's start with recording agreements. These first two bullet points, term and delivery commitment. So a term usually refers to how long a contract lasts. In traditional contracts, it's a length of time. In recording agreements, it's actually not so much a length of time as it is a number of albums or a number of songs that have to be delivered. So if you can deliver those in a short amount of time, your deal might be shorter. If it takes you longer, your deal will be longer. And then a delivery commitment, it's similar, but it's basically saying you can't, say you have a 3-album deal. You can't deliver them an album of only like 8 songs or whatever. They might have a minimum amount of songs that need to be on an album. So these two things can be negotiated. Obviously you kind of want the commitment to be as low as possible so that you're not stuck in a deal that you might not be happy with. And then the third bullet point is rights granted, which is why I kind of explained that earlier. WFH stands not work from home, which is what most of us have heard lately, but actually for work for hire. And this was traditionally how all recording agreements were structured back in the day when you needed a record label in order to really be successful. What it means is that while you're signed to a recording agreement, any music that you create will automatically be owned by the record label as a work made for hire, as if they are the employer and you are the employee, or the artist is the employee. That made sense back in the day when, like I said, you kind of needed a record label in order to be successful. They would really, they would be the money, they would be the marketing, they had the relationships to get it on the radio, all that stuff. That isn't necessarily a given nowadays. In 2021, a lot of artists are like, by the time that they get to the point of signing a record deal, they've already got music out there, they've already got a following, like, home recording studios and TikTok. There's just like so much more opportunity for an artist to really get themselves going and get momentum. And that gives them leverage to not necessarily enter into this straight work for hire deal. They might instead be able to enter into what is called a license deal, where the record label will have an exclusive license to the music during the term. After the term, those rights revert back to the artist and they can go off and do whatever they want. Because it's worth noting that work for hire, that means that the record label owns the music forever. Like, even though your recording deal may finish and you can go on and record new music, they own that forever. So obviously, if you can and if you have the leverage, you would want to not have that be the case. And then the fourth and fifth bullet points are about money, advance and royalties. Obviously, higher is better. Again, if you're able to negotiate it to be a license rather than work for hire, that might mean that your money is going to be lower. And I would say, do not do a work for hire unless it's really worth it monetarily. So don't do a work for hire for a $10,000 advance like that. Then you've just, sold the farm, or whatever the phrase is. So don't do that. Try to really pay attention to that scale, like I said, and what rights you're giving away and how much you're being compensated for it. With royalties, I can give you an idea of what these should be, but it is really just going to vary based on so many different factors. The biggest of which being like your stature and your leverage, or your artist's leverage. If your artist is being paid on PPD, which stands for price per dealer, the royalty range is usually going to be anywhere between 12% and 18%. But 18% is like your Madonnas and stuff. So, but try to have it be in the 12 to 18% range. If instead you're paid on net profits, which some labels are doing now, it should be in the 20 to 25% range. It would take me way too long to explain why those are different, but just suffice it to say, write down those numbers, and that's where you should be trying to land. Controlled composition terms is the next one. I always hate having to explain this. It's because it's a very archaic term that doesn't really fit that well into 2021 music business. But suffice it to say, This basically means that the artist, or I'm sorry, that the record label does not want to have to pay mechanical royalties, which is a publishing term. They don't want to have to pay many of them. So they're going to try to put a cap on the percentage of the statutory rate and how many songs. Um, right now, the statutory rate is 9.1 cents. So anytime that a song is like physically sold or downloaded, the songwriter or the publisher has to receive 9.1 cents. So in the recording agreement, sometimes the record label will try to say, we're only going to pay 75% of 9.1 cents. Um, I know it's silly, but and then they'll also say, and we're going to cap it. So say your album has 15 songs, we're only going to pay the mechanical royalty on 12 of the 15 songs. So if you can get these things into a better position, meaning 100% of the statutory rate and no caps or a higher cap, great. But honestly, this is a really difficult one to negotiate out of. It's just unfortunately kind of an industry standard thing, so you might just kind of be stuck with it. But I wanted to put it in here so I could give you an idea of what it means, because it does kind of look scary when you get to that provision, and it's a little bit confusing. So there's that. Second to last bullet point is marketing commitments or restrictions. This is important to have in there because you don't want to go into this deal and say, hey, here's exclusive control of my music, or here's ownership of my music, and then not have the record label commit heartily towards like marketing and things. So you want to have a provision in there where they're saying that they're going to spend X amount of dollars on marketing, or a certain amount of time on marketing, that sort of thing. This will really vary. I can't exactly give you a number because just like with advance, it will just really depend on like stature and things like that. But try to at least have a marketing commitment in there that says that they have to go out of their way to market this music and exploit it. And then lastly, accounting and audit rights. So this just is basically making sure that it's laid out in the agreement how and when the artist is paid royalties. I personally prefer to get quarterly statements and royalties, but they'll usually want it to be biannually, so twice a year. Anywhere between there is fine, but what's really important is getting an audit right. If you haven't heard of this before, it is the right of the artist to appoint a financial expert, so like a CPA or just an accountant, to inspect the record label's books and records as they relate to the artist's royalties in order to make sure that the label has been paying them correctly. This is usually limited to once per year. So, they don't want you just like coming in all the time, which makes sense. So once per year. And then there will also usually be like a time limit. Like if it's been 3 years since we rendered this statement, you can no longer audit or object to it. So try to not have it be under 3 years. You want to have like a healthy length of time that you can audit. So that is a big picture overview of recording agreements, but hopefully it gives you an idea of, the things that you can push back on, the things to look out for, and to try to negotiate into a better position.